Pressley for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you all for joining us for this critical hearing. I've been in Congress now 5 years, and the best advice I received in freshman orientation was, in the process of legislating and governing, it is very easy, long days, to forget the plot. And the plot is the people. And I do believe that on the issue of housing, this committee has lost the plot. It has taken us 11 months to have one hearing on housing, when this is an issue of great consequence, determining health outcomes, social and economic mobility. It is a transcendent issue. It is urban, it is rural. And when I'm in community, and in fact, I had a town hall last night, a teletown hall with thousands of my constituents, and housing dominated that discussion. So let me make it plain. Housing is a fundamental human right. But as home prices have risen and rents skyrocketed, it is a right that has become less and less attainable for working families across our country, and especially in the Massachusetts 7th, where the cost of a single-family home is 11 times greater than it was in 1980. For a family in the greater Boston area to purchase a median single-family home, they would need an annual income of at least $300,000. So we are pricing out an entire generation from home ownership. This is one of the greatest challenges of our time, and we have got to confront it and do so thoughtfully and with urgency. Inclusionary zoning laws are a major contributor to our housing shortage. For decades, inclusionary zoning laws have excluded people of color, immigrants, people with disabilities, and low-income families from living in certain communities. Ms. Gentle, how has single-family zoning and the prohibition on building multifamily housing stifled the supply of housing and raised housing prices?
Sure. So one of the challenges in our housing market is the supply of apartments not keeping up with demand. So in many communities, there's literally not enough apartments for the people who live there or who want to move there. And it's often restrictive local zoning that is to blame. And these local laws restrict the construction of often any kind of apartments, and especially affordable apartments, which drives up costs for everyone, squeezing the lowest income people the most. And these kind of restrictive local zoning laws often maintain and worsen segregation and racial inequities. So the federal government should do all it can to incentivize or require states and localities to remove these restrictive local zoning laws so that the market can build apartments for middle-income people. But even when that happens, the housing will not be affordable for extremely low-income households, because even if those restrictions aren't in place, the private market on its own can't build and operate apartments that are affordable to people with extremely low incomes, because the rent that they can pay doesn't cover the costs to operate and maintain those costs. So for this kind of a market failure, government intervention, federal government intervention in the form of subsidies is necessary to make those apartments affordable to people with extremely low incomes.
Thank you. And, in that our racial wealth gap continues to grow, I'm also concerned about the reality of modern-day redlining. Chairman, I ask unanimous consent to enter a 2022 article by WBUR titled, "Black and Hispanic People Are More Likely to Be Denied Mortgage Loans in Boston," into the record. This report found that in Boston, when white applicants applied for a mortgage, the denial rate was approximately 5%. But for Black and Latinx applicants, the denial rates were 15.3% and 12.7% respectively. This is modern-day redlining, period. Ms. Gentle, how does lending and housing discrimination impact the homeownership opportunities for communities of color, and what reforms do you recommend to curtail these unfair practices?
Well, discrimination in lending is against the law, but it absolutely continues in practice. And I would share some statistics from our colleagues at National Fair Housing Alliance that have shown that fair housing complaints in 2022 have been at the highest record ever, and complaints especially around source of income discrimination or discrimination for people experiencing domestic violence has been especially pronounced. And even with the filing rates being as high as they are, many more cases of discrimination go unreported. So the problem is pronounced.
The gentlelady's time's expired. The gentleman from Florida, Mr. Posey, is now recognized for 5 minutes.